I said good afternoon. Thank you. All right, everybody in the back, there's a boatload of tables up front, and I'm going to call you out until you come grab a table up front. Just kidding. Today's workshop, today and tomorrow's workshop, is not going to have a bunch of pomp and circumstance. This is not a conference. This is a workshop. You all have been invited here because you work on delivering projects for the Department of Transportation in some capacity as a technical subject matter expert, as a project manager, as a staff at NCDOT, as a division engineer. We're here to talk about program delivery. Okay, so welcome to the 2022, which is technically the 2021 pre-construction workshop. As you can see from the agenda, we have a lot of information to cover. The purpose of this workshop is to provide you with what we want to refer to as change at DOT. What new or updated process, procedures, guidelines, tools, and resources are available. And most importantly, to collaborate. It's been a long time since we've been able to get together face to face. I feel a little lucky that I get to talk today, that I can take my mask off. So I hope that you enjoy that collaboration aspect of the workshop. Throughout the workshop, I ask that you take advantage of the opportunity and ask questions of the presenters. I know from past presentations and conferences with many of you all, there's a fear of asking dumb questions in front of mass crowds, but if you know anything about me, I've been making a living for 4.5 years asking dumb questions, so hopefully you can follow my example. I think that's how we really solve problems, is when we ask questions. So, spend some time talking with your peers. Talk to the DOT units. There's a lot of DOT leadership in the room here. We also have all of the different technical units represented in the vendor area, which is diagonal to this room, so you can continue making relationships and enhancing the ones that you have. At the end of the day, what you put into this workshop is what you're going to get out. All right, so I hope you take that seriously. Now, in previous pre-construction workshops, you might remember I went around and flipped the light switch off in all the networking events to get your butts back into the workshop sessions. I don't have switches this year, so I'm going to ring a bell. I'm going to find something to get you back into what the most important part is. According to university COVID protocols, they require that everyone have a mask on at all times unless you're eating or drinking, right? Or presenting. If you do not have a mask, we have masks at the registration table. First of all, I want to thank the McKimmon Center for working with us to the challenges of COVID. This workshop was supposed to be held last August, and we were very fortunate to find a time to basically rent out the whole McKimmon Center for you all. I also would like to thank Eugene and Itri. They're kind of the guys behind the curtain, guys and gals behind the curtain to make everything work together and seamlessly. So thank you, Eugene, and your team. You'll notice, as we do at typical meetings, there's PDH signups at the tables. Signing up for this form will have you covered for the entire afternoon. And as we go into tomorrow's sessions, there'll be sign-up sheets in those sessions. I'm very proud to say that we have some great leadership from North Carolina presenting today at the pre-construction workshop. Unfortunately, some of our presenters are not going to be able to be here physically, but more virtually due to other scheduled demands. Today we're going to have Secretary Eric Boyette, and I'm not going to read bios because you all know all these people. Eric Boyette, we have Beau, NCDOT Chief Operating Officer, as well as John Sullivan, our FHWA North Carolina Division Administrator, as well with Ronnie Keeter. So we're going to jump right into this. Secretary Boyette, are you there?
Hey, Chris, I'm here.
The floor is yours, sir.
All right, thank you, and thank you for that. And Chris, also thank you for not reading bios, because that just tells people how old we are. But first, I want to thank you and thank you for being here today. And before I begin, I do want to thank our all the hard work that went on with our pre-construction side of the house and to get this conference or this session workshop ready for you. You know that your industry is a very important part of how we build a transportation network that all of our North Carolinians need and use. So we're going to jump right in. Something that's top of mind with all of us. You've seen recently and heard that, we faced 3 storms recently already this month. And it's a good reminder of just how important all of our division, our maintenance operations, our contract resources, and all of our teams working together to make sure that we keep North Carolina roads and our transportation systems open for business. And we're thankful for our partnerships. We've got great partnerships with our emergency management teams, our Highway Patrol, the National Guard. They play a critical role in how we all respond as a team to these storms. So just to kind of give you a visual here, you see our TMC on the left, you see our truck in the middle, and the National Guard, some of their heavy equipment operating unit in this slide. And for us, we've got to maintain and build these relationships and work to make sure we have our roadways open safely. And, the first storm we saw brought a lot of flooding and closed some of our roads temporarily. And it was almost like a good prep run for our teams and our crews as we saw these next bigger storms arrive the next few weeks.
Mr. Secretary, sorry to interrupt. You need to share your slides, sir.
Got it, Eugene. Hold on one second.
Thank you.
Let's see.
There
How's that?
Yes, we got him now. Thank you.
Yeah, good deal. It must have stopped while we went on our little intermission. But this kind of shows you, like I said, what our partnerships and where we are. And, I just want to thank all of our crews, all of our partners, not only our agency partners, but also our contract partners. Because we really lean on our employees very heavily during this time and our contract partners. And obviously, out west, the National Guard played a heavy role in helping us with towing operations. So, it looks like every time Mother Nature, delivers, NCDOT and our partners deliver as well to make sure we've got our roads open. Very proud of how we serve our North Carolinians and making sure that we're there for them in this critical time. But when you look at that, it brings up the topic of resiliency. So these storms, we're seeing more and more of the impact and, how these aspects are not only affecting DOT, but our entire state. And we're looking at how do we design and build to this new normal? And what is the public expectation? The expectation that we're seeing is that we have to provide a resilient infrastructure and make sure that our industry partners understand the same. And we've got to make sure that we continue to do this through each and every way that we work with our citizens. And if you look, here's a few good images of some of our emergency responses that we've seen in the past. We're seeing, as each and every one of you have seen, more and more stronger storms that are hitting North Carolina. We saw, obviously, we talk about Hurricane Florence a lot, but just look at last summer and what we saw, just heavy rains, a lot of flooding on NC-12 and Tropical Storm Fred out west. So we're continuing to see, not just one area of our state get hit, but our entire area. So what does that mean for us? We have to look at resiliency and what are we doing? So one of the things that we're doing is, we completed a resilience assessment for I-95 and I-40 and a lot of our other major thoroughfares. But, we're raising low-lying portions of I-95 that have been vulnerable to flooding. I think it was about a $430 million contract that was awarded last fall through I-95 around the Lumberton area for about 8 miles there. And it's going to make this more resilient for the future. And we're also building back roads stronger so that we can, meet these storms where we should. US 421 is a prime example there. That was a Florence washout that has been replaced with 2-lane bridges to allow for, more water to flow underneath those structures. So, if you look at it, NCDOT works hard to do this, but you look at North Carolina as a whole. Over the last 20 years, as you see there, we've experienced, 500 to 1,000 year storm events. And just think about that. That's a lot for our infrastructure to try to withhold. And for us to make sure that we're planning for a future, we've got to look forward. And how do we do that? We've got to find ways to, do that. And what we've done, we've implemented a department-wide, resiliency policy. We're continuing to work with our local, state, and federal officials on how do we address that statewide. We did get some funding from the General Assembly, and also our partners got some funding from the General Assembly. So we're excited about that and continuing to look on ways that we can continue to build upon that and help build a more resilient infrastructure for our future. But when you talk about money, let's bring that up. That's been a topic. I know for me, when I walked in the door, was not a very good one. But now I can tell you we are so much better off and more stronger in a financial state than we have been since I walked in the door. Our team has done a great job of looking forward on our financials and what do we do. You should be pleased to know we're looking at about a $3 billion project cost for our project letting this year, for our calendar year. Excited about that. I think our Chief Operating Officer, Beau, Memory, is going to talk about that a little more in detail. But, we're continuing to work. We've got our state budget that's been certified, and, we're continuing to work. This next slide is one of our financial highlights that we present to our board. And it kind of gives you what I like to talk about as our top three. We talk about cash, which is important to make sure we've got money to pay our bills, but also our commitments. So it tells you how much money we have out there, how many commitments we have out there where we owe people money. So we got to make sure those commitments and those cash balances are equal, that we can make sure we've got enough cash on hand to pay our bills. And then at the bottom is very important. What project activities have we got going on? So we've got, projects that are moving, and we also got new projects that we've activated. So we've got a fine balance here to make sure that we have the money to pay our bills. We've got work on the street, and we've also got new projects that we're looking at to move forward when we can. So it's a good way for us to make sure we're being conservative because, as I mentioned in the first, we've had 3 storms already in January. So we got to have the funding to make sure we can respond to those. But we're really continuing to just continue to watch our financial position and be as proactive as we can with projects, but also make sure we're conservative to cover the storms that none of us can anticipate, but we've got to try. So this slide is also one that we gave in January, just to kind of give you another update. It was good to see we've got our 5th consecutive year of clean financials. Great to see that. Very excited that team, very proud of our financial team for what they do. Also had another spending plan amendment that was adjusted by our board, and it reduces to about $265 million. But, as everyone's seeing, our workforce issues that we're seeing, supply chain issues. So the business units did a good job of really looking at, how much can we actually spend, and working with our partners and being realistic about it. So, we're continuing to look, at what does that look like for our future. And it's good news that we've got another opportunity to have a building C sale of about $300 million this spring. So we're excited about that as well. And that's going to help us maintain the strong project delivery program and a consistent program. That's what I know I've heard over and over again from all of our partners. And that's one thing that we focus on each and every day. Next, talk a little bit about our infrastructure bill that was passed. We were very excited about that. Glad to have, the bipartisan support. When we look at, federal investment in infrastructure, especially transportation, we get excited. Each and every dollar we get, it's an additional to what we already have, is definitely important. And we're just thankful for that commitment to North Carolina and our growing needs across our state. And if you look at specifically what this means to North Carolina, it's about $400 million a year over the next 5 years for bridges, highways, and transit. Specifically about a 20% increase in our highway fund. And it allows us to really look more at, the programming issue that we were having around our STIP that we've been telling you about. What does that look like for us? It's been a deficit. So how is this going to help us offset some of those costs? And we're still continuing to do that evaluation. And we will continue to look at that, and we'll continue to message that with you and also our local communities and planning organizations to make sure we're partnering and we're being transparent with everything that we're doing. And we're committed to working with each of our leaders on that. Next, I want to talk specifically about, our SBSFs. So we're really working to try to find, additional work. How can we get those, get that accomplished? The first thing is we got to get more SPSFs qualified, pre-qualified. So I know you had a session this morning, a workshop this morning. I hope that was very meaningful, and we will continue to do those. And I encourage each and every one of you, as Chris said, make sure you take this opportunity to meet and talk to each other. Work through, and as you can see, we're on a very, very stronger financial future than when I first walked in the door. Excited about that, excited about the future of our agency and our partnership. If you talk about, progress, we've got these next couple slides will tell you where, the industry's headed and what we're seeing. The Randolph County mega site, it's another way for us to grow as a state. It's exciting news, and the triad illustrates just how important these projects are and how our STIP improvements are around, and how the SPSFs can really help us with that and building this thriving infrastructure network that we're going to need. We had another one that's really ratcheting up right now. It's our the Toyota site and over in Randolph County, and it's really going to be a great announcement for the future. If you look at what we lost with Toyota, we lost what I say the history. We lost a wave of what transportation looked like in the past, the combustible engine. We're actually won what it looks like for the future. So the battery industry, if you're seeing, where all the manufacturers are moving towards electric vehicles, and this is $1 billion investment. So we're continuing to work on that. It's about 1,700 jobs, as you see there. We got support from a General Assembly of about $130 million to help with road improvements and, to help that first phase. And our division forces there are doing a great job. They're continuing to work with Toyota and all of our partners there to make sure we're successful. But, we're going to see things like this continue. We're going to see more projects like this, and our state is continuing to grow economically, and we've got to support that, and we need your help to partner with that. And I just want to say thank you. Thank you to each and every one of you, and we appreciate your partnership and your participation here in this workshop today. And Chris, I'm going to flip it back to you unless there are any questions.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Secretary. He always tells me to call him Eric, but I can't bring myself to do it. I appreciate you providing us such a broad overview of what's been going on with DOT and where we're going. We weren't going to put you on the spot, Mr. Secretary, to answer any questions, but we will have an opportunity in future sessions where attendees can submit questions through the Slido app. And I want to be respectful of your time. I know you have a very busy schedule, so if any of questions come up, we'll be more than happy to float them your way if your team cannot answer them. Thank you so much.
I got a lot of confidence in that team.
Thanks again.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Chris.
With that, we want to transition. This is a workshop, right? We're going from one to the next. Next up, we have Chief Operating Officer Beau Memory. Beau, are you there?
I think I am. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Good. I'm sorry I couldn't be there in person. I got called away for a meeting at the General Assembly, but I plan on being there with you later today because the conversation you are having is so important to project delivery in North Carolina. As the Secretary said, we're back on solid financial footing with more than $3.3 billion in lettings this calendar year and planning to spend more than $275 million in preliminary engineering. But as the Secretary said, and as you already know, the State Transportation Improvement Program is significantly over-programmed. Every bucket has more projects promised than the dollars can deliver. The adversity of the cash crisis a couple of years ago also brought about significant, meaningful change. The department's finances have never been more transparent. Business units at DOT have never been more aware or accountable for their spending. And the DOT board has never been more engaged in the financial health of the department as they are now. The challenges with the STIP will be difficult, and communities across the state will be disappointed, but it's also an opportunity. We are implementing value assessments and value engineering into the project delivery process. We have already saved $150 million in project costs with these approaches. We've implemented project budgets so that project teams and divisions know what to design to and how the cost of one project affects another. Project budgets will have us making STIP updates in near real time because as individual project costs change, the STIP will too. This will allow us to be more transparent and collaborative with our NPOs and RPOs and other local partners because the funds in the STIP are a finite resource. Every dollar we spend on one project is a dollar we can't spend on another. Every interchange we add to one project makes another project not possible. We cannot fix all of the transportation needs in one community at the expense of another. And we have to be transparent about that. And we must design projects with the budget in mind. We have to design and deliver locally while thinking globally. And this is the change in how we approach project development. It's going to require hard choices and difficult conversations, and it's going to take all of us. But our transportation community is tough. We're resilient, and we'll meet this challenge working together. I look forward to being with you later today, and thank you for the time.
Thank you, Beau. I do hope we get to see you this afternoon. I appreciate your comments. A lot of what Beau was saying are things that we all really need to hear because many of you are the designers, the planners, the analysts. You have the ability to affect the project scope, schedule, budget, quality, and risk. You have the ability to help us maintain the original purpose of projects. We need your help to help keep our projects to what they were originally envisioned for and to help us manage those project budgets so we can try to stabilize, as the Secretary and Beau stated, stabilize our program delivery. With that, I'd like to transition over to John Sullivan from FHWA.
Thank you, Chris. It certainly is a pleasure for us at Federal Highways to be here with you today. You know, I think we've been looking forward to this event because I think it's really timely, especially, you know, talking about a pre-construction workshop and how we can deliver more efficiently. As the Secretary said, we just had some recent legislation passed, which is bipartisan infrastructure law. So we view this workshop as timely. You know, like many of you, Federal Highways has been in a virtual environment for the last 2 years, so I'd like to take a little bit of time to just have my folks stand up so that you can sort of recognize them again. I know sometimes it's hard with facial recognition with masks and stuff to pick out people, so would my team go ahead and sort of stand up? So just want you to recognize we've made a commitment for our folks to come here and participate in this because it's really going to sort of lead into what I want to talk about. Thank you. I'm very proud of my team, and I'm very proud of the way they approach their work. You know, we are excited to be invited to participate in North Carolina DOT's integrated project delivery process and improvements, because I think the philosophy that the NCDOT leadership meshes very closely with that of Federal Highways. What we want to do at Federal Highways, and I know what the leaders at NCDOT want to do, is we want to simplify project delivery so it's efficient and effective. So we want to be able to help identify what are the real tasks that need to be delivered on a project. This allows us to free up critical and key resources to actually identify the issue, identify the problems, to identify the technical criteria so that we can appropriately use our resources to really address those critical items that are key to project delivery. So Chris, thank you for incorporating us in there. You know, Federal Highways, we have what I would call 2 roles in the delivery of the federal aid program. It's a federally assisted, state administered program, and we view our role as like two hands. The first hand, of course, there are expectations that we have a oversight of the federal regulatory process. So in one hand, one of our roles is the federal, ensuring that federal requirements are met. The other is the role of value added. This is training, this is technical assistance, this is helping the department deploy innovation. So we have those two roles. What I think Federal Highways is trying to do nationally is how do we reconfigure our oversight roles where we can do those more on a programmatic basis so that we can help departments by delegating authority, by testing compliance after the project is underway, so that we can free up our resources to help solve problems, to help scope out projects, to help deliver innovation, and really deliver assistance that you want or need instead of what we might push down to you, if that makes sense. So, you know, Federal Highways, we call this our risk-based approach to project delivery. And so we have for the oversight function, I think we have what we would call two measures of success. The first measure of success is compliance with the federal requirements. And how do we test for that measure of success? We have what we call a compliance assessment program, which is a randomly selected, randomly sampled test of projects where we test for compliance. The beauty behind this is we delegate the project approvals, we allow project delivery to go efficient, and then we test for compliance. The downside of that risk or benefit is that if we find something wrong, the work's been complete. So we have very little recourse in how to help you solve a problem if the work doesn't comply. Now, one approach that we try to do is engage with folks early on through project scope and project initiation to really, are there complex issues? Where can Federal Highways provide assistance? If you're unsure of the requirements, all we ask is call us in advance. We will help guide you through that process. We won't jump in and take project approvals, but we want you to be successful. We are not here to try and find things wrong. The successful delivery of the federal aid program is our mission, is our goal, and what we want to achieve. And so we have confidence in NCDOT, and that's why we have no problems delegating the approval to y'all. The other measure of success is improper payments, okay? This is an area that, you know, quite frankly, over the last decade, we have not had an improper payment through NCDOT delivered projects in the last decade. And that's tested through transaction testing that we conduct and transaction testing done by the highway auditors of the Highway Trust Fund. So that's a major accomplishment, so I'd like y'all to give yourselves a hand. You know, this risk-based approach where we identify our measures of success, tell you how we're going to do that, I believe, you know, if we lay out the expectations, I'm confident NCDOT will deliver. What this does is it frees up our staff to really do the things that we need to do to help you be successful. And it's not micromanaging project delivery. It's really training you on our requirements, explaining why our requirements exist, how you can best deal with those requirements in an efficient manner, and then watch you do the work and test after the fact. You know, this allows us to really provide assistance that you want and need. And so, you know, one of the things that we've worked with in the integrated project delivery is really to try and outline what are the federal requirements. So when we delegate federal actions to you, what are they? Well, we have a stewardship and oversight agreement that's been formalized and recently approved by Secretary Boyette. That agreement really explains exactly which authorities and which requirements in federal law and regulation are you acting on our behalf during project delivery. Now, delegating, I want you to remember, is us delegating our approval to NCDOT. It's not waiving the requirements, okay? So we're going to trust and verify. The second thing that we do when we sort of do this is we worked with, and I want to give a shout out to Derek Lewis. Derek, where are you? Okay. So Derek led a facilitation of a development of a guidance document or a guidance tool. What this does is it really supplements our stewardship and oversight agreement. This tool helps provide the context of why the requirement exists. It provides a link to the guidance from federal highways. It also gives you greater detail on the processes and procedures that are linked to that requirement that NCDOT has developed. This essentially helps us explain why we're doing what we're doing and helps you be successful. And I think that tool is going to be a great benefit. The other thing that it's going to do is we don't have to get formal approvals from our Washington office as we change processes, as we update guidance. We can quickly just link to that tool. You know, this has been awesome. I think it's going to be successful, but one thing that it, you know, how many people are actually familiar with these tools and with this agreement? And so, you know, that's why it's important for us to use a risk-based approach so that we can spend more time out in the field helping guide you through these processes, helping guide you through the procedures, help you understand our requirements, and help you deliver your projects successfully. You know, other things that we've worked closely on is project initiation, and you're going to hear more about this, really applying the risk manual and the quality manual that NCDOT has developed. I think we can help you identify sort of the risks associated with the federal requirements, but more importantly, help you come up with strategies to mitigate those. We think we can help you with your resource agency partners. I know my staff has got some great relationships with our federal and state agencies. And again, I think we can help you try and problem solve with them and with you to help you deliver your projects. One thing that I would like to mention is we've worked with NCDOT Technical Services, the Corps of Engineers, and Department of Environmental Quality to really take a look at the draft STIP and try to identify what are those projects that really are going to be a concern of each agency. Hopefully, we can walk into project initiation with, here are the issues, here's this project, but more importantly, we can put other projects that are really not of issue in a bucket and identify for you, okay, these aren't going to be complex projects. Hopefully, we've identified that there aren't any major issues, which will give you more predictability as you develop your budgets and schedules. You know, one tool that we've used to sort of enhance the delegation is and I hope you've heard of it, is our programmatic CE. You know, in project initiation, we hope to help you better understand which projects to process under the checklist CE or those CEs that we've delegated to the state, and which ones really need to be documented CEs. We think we can help you sort of navigate the issues, the complexities, and help you develop schedules that are more predictable for those CEs. You know, the other two topics that I would like to highlight are the Division Let Manual and then the IDIQ procedures for construction projects. These are two areas where we've worked closely with NCDOT to really develop or enhance, update these processes to ensure that projects are delivered successfully but meet our regulatory requirements. So we think these are opportunities for us to get back out in the field to help you understand why these were created, how they should be applied, and what are the real federal requirements that are associated with project delivery. In summary, just like to say the Federal Highway Program has always been a state-administered, federally assisted program. We work closely with NCDOT to develop many of the products that you're working with because we want you to be successful. We know you can be successful. We know that if there's an issue, that we can quietly work with NCDOT leadership to resolve those issues and I know they want to deliver projects in conformance with our requirements as well as we want to help them deliver them successfully. In closing, I'd just like to mention it's our intention to try and get back out into the field. I know we've been in this virtual environment for the past 2 years almost. We recognize that we want to travel to each of the 14 divisions to have more conversations specifically on these new documents, these new requirements, but more importantly, how Federal Highways can help you be successful and how we can better provide the assistance that you want and that you need to deliver your projects. So thank you.
Now everybody's worried. Oh, FHWA's coming to our division. What I will tell you about John Sullivan and his team, I had the pleasure of working with John when I was a consultant on some pretty complex projects, and he's fantastic. His team is fantastic. When I joined NCDOT, I had a conversation with John, and I said, John, I think we need to meet about once a month. And he's like, Chris, why do you think we need to meet so often? We've been working in partnership to try to increase transparency in our relationship with FHWA and NCDOT as a whole is an enormous value that many other state DOTs do not have. We have a very close working relationship with them, and we wouldn't be here where we are now today without John and his team. And so, John, from me to you and your team, we appreciate you. They've been right along with us on IPD, understanding what we're trying to achieve and helping us identify ways to be able to achieve it. So I thank you, John, and your team. Enough of that mushy stuff. I'm going to bring up Ronnie Keeter. Appreciate you coming, Ronnie. It's going to drill down a little bit. As you can see, we're drilling down the funnel. And if you work with me a lot, I like to use the funnel scenario. Ronnie's going to take us to the next level.
Thank you, Chris. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you. The Secretary Beau has given us a great overview of the department. One thing I would like to point out that the Secretary covered is that snowstorm. One thing to give you an idea of what it costs, the month of January, we spent $8 million on removing snow. That doesn't count this last weekend's worth of work that was a statewide event, would probably cost, what, Brian, another $5 or $6 million at least. So performance takes money as well as everybody in this room knows. The other thing that I'd like to point out about the snowstorms is communication. We had some meetings with the division engineers and we're talking, and I think it was Mark Gibbs that brought up, look, we really need to get the National Guard out here to help us on 26 and 40. To help those trucks that get stuck to pull them up the hill. Well, his local experience and just knowing that's what happens and communicating to us and us communicating to the statewide folks and making that happen, I think could have prevented or may have prevented an event like they had in Virginia on 95 where people were spending the night out there on the interstate. So I think I saw Mark here, but I would like to highlight that how important communication is within the divisions and with everybody in this room. We are glad to have John Sullivan here with us and his team. His partnership with us is invaluable, and we communicate with other states, and we really are fortunate to have you to work with and your team. You've helped us out a lot. Today I'd like to cover a few of the department's initiatives in pre-construction in the coming year, including construction and maintenance considerations in design, designing projects within a budget, and impacts of budgets on our cash model, as Beau mentioned. The department will be doing more constructability and long-term maintenance reviews of projects in the coming year. We're also doing post-construction project reviews. In those post-construction project reviews, we're bringing in contractors, designers, project managers, resident engineers, maintenance engineers, right-of-way agents, and utility agents. The purpose of those reviews isn't to just point out mistakes, but they're also to learn what are those things that we've done well and to learn from those mistakes so that we don't repeat them in the future. And lastly, bringing NCDOT construction and maintenance personnel early and often in the design process. This should reduce the amount of supplemental agreements and claims and incorporate contractor ideas like constructability and maintenance of traffic. The next area of emphasis is designing projects within a budget, including right-of-way and utilities. This begins with clearly defining the purpose and need and establishing as accurate a budget as possible when the project is programmed. While we know that there are contingencies and unforeseen expenses that come up, we must design and build projects within the program budget and know the impacts to the STIP when we don't build these projects within the budget. With additional focus on financial responsibility in our department, our cash models are important now as ever. We're looking to project managers to manage project budgets, letting schedules, and project delivery. This data directly feeds into our cash model and needs to be as accurate and dependable as possible. Delaying projects also has major impacts to our communities, cities and towns, and property owners along the project. Our partners in the design and construction industry also rely on a consistent STIP, including their let schedules. Now I'd like to show you a short video on IPD.
What does it take to get a transportation project out the door? Well, let's see. We got environmental, structures, traffic ops, STIP, right-of-way, geotechnical, programming, project development, design, construction, utilities, hydraulics, signing, safety, public involvement, contractors, legislature, city councils. That's a lot. I mean, the first Star Wars, episode 4, the first one, it lists over 600 people in the credits. NCDOT has more than 9,000 people, 15 times what it took for Star Wars. Because that's what it takes to make roads for 10 million people living in North Carolina. I mean, the roads we build and maintain could circle the earth 3 times. Yeah, let's see you do that, George Lucas. And we've done this for over 100 years, analyzing roads, improving them. And this is why we made this video, by the way, 100 years into it, we've decided to analyze ourselves, our ideas, the transportation of an idea through the Department of Transportation. It's kind of meta. It's like a metaphysical traffic study. How schedule, scope, budget, and all those disciplines turn ideas into ready-to-go projects. The NCDOT Project Highway. But, of course, it's not a real highway, it's a metaphor. You get it. Let's move on. What we're learning is that our projects are taking long, back-breaking journeys that are way more convoluted than they need to be. Like those old board games with the plastic piece that you gotta get from point A to point B, but it's not really that simple, right? You got obstacles, penalties, random dice rolls, and every player is basically struggling alone to make it through this chaotic landscape. And transportation projects can be like that. All these disciplines addressing complex problems in isolation. A typical example. Engineer number 1 places supports for an overpass here, and at the same time, engineer number 2 decides to run some utility lines in the same spot. And no one notices until we're way down the road, and suddenly we see 2 perfectly reasonable solutions in conflict with each other. That's the problem with the old board game mentality. You're always going back spaces, because even though we see the trees, we rarely think about the forest. However, if you're into board games, which, I am, then you know that 21st century games are collaborative. We win or we lose together. And the key to winning is to communicate with each other at critical moments. And at NCDOT, we're creating a workflow with this collaborative approach in mind. We call it Integrated Project Delivery, IPD, a kind of master plan for our transportation projects. Lots of pieces to the IPD. Let's look at the PDN, the Project Delivery Network. It's like the design of the board game, the rules and stuff, the basic framework for the metaphysical journey. And this framework puts communication at the center of the process. At pivotal moments, heads of disciplines come together to compare notes and make specific strategic decisions for the project. And then each discipline does its thing for a while, and before long, they're back together to review the progress and make more decisions. Really, it's less of a path for a project and more of a network. So I guess it's good we call it Project Delivery Network and not Project Delivery Path or whatever. Sorry, I'm getting off track. Back to the IPD. Project managers. Project managers supervise the back and forth between individual tasks and the big picture collaborations. A project manager is like that person who actually reads the rule book before the game starts, who's always got their eyes on the overall process. They facilitate meetings, manage risks, resolve conflicts. That's right, they're the dungeon master. So while each discipline focuses on their own trees, the project manager, they see the forest from those trees and keep everyone pointed in the right direction. PMs are critical to a smooth collaborative process, and sometimes they bring donuts, so let's not forget that. So, recap, the new IPD brings NCDOT's project delivery methods into the 21st century. It's made up of several parts, including the project delivery network, that's the board game one, which has become more collaborative, more communicative, and where each project is overseen by a donut-toting dungeon master, donut-toting project manager, that's it, who oversees this PDN process, facilitating communication while encouraging innovation. Because if you're gonna circle the globe 3 times, you better do Star Wars level work, or better. And we are, and we will. And that's what we've been working on. We'll keep you up to date on other parts of the IPD as they come into focus. Let us know what you think, and help yourself to a donut.
That was a great video, Chris, and I'd like to take this time too to thank Chris and his team for taking on IPD. And I know it wasn't easy, and it's not easy when you've got another job to do of delivering all these projects as you develop the IPD. So I would like to take a minute and give Chris a round of applause on where he's at with IPD. This vision is of IPD is a tool to bridge those knowledge gaps of our guys that are retiring and the guys and gals in our industry that are retiring. Having this documented, I know Matt and I, when we were in the division, said, man, it would have been a great idea to have this 3 or 4 years ago when a lot of these projects were pushed out to the division for us to deliver. It would have been nice to have a blueprint, and we kind of felt our way through a lot of it, and we made some mistakes, but we learned from them, and we delivered projects. But this tool, I think, will help those future engineers for sure. It does a great job identifying the roles and responsibilities of our divisions and the central offices. The industry and DOT staff and our federal highway partners were very helpful in developing this resource. Today, we're asking for everyone in this room to go back and review the IPD process and review that project delivery network, because Chris and I both want this to be a resource that'll benefit us and help us deliver these projects. And the last thing we want it to be is just another process. A smart guy told me one time, when you go into public service, you want to be exactly that, a public servant and not a bureaucrat. Not somebody that just does the process to do the process. We want this to be a benefit and a tool for us. In closing, I look forward to catching up with everyone. I encourage everyone here to reach out to those new faces, and for everyone, if they get the chance, to put some of these faces with the names that we've had so many teams call with the last 2 years, and actually get to communicate in person. But be careful, wear your mask, and let's do those protocols. But I appreciate your time, and I appreciate y'all being here to learn with us the next couple of days.
I'd like to just take a moment and thank our speakers, Secretary Eric Boyette, Chief Operating Officer Beau, John Sullivan, our FHWA Division Administrator, and Ronnie Keeter, our NCDOT Chief Engineer. Without their leadership and vision, guidance, and support, we wouldn't be where we are. And I think we're in a really good position. So would you please join me in thanking them for being here with us today? I want to talk about a couple things before we close, because we do have a minute or two. You know, Ronnie talked about a couple things that I'd like to draw attention to. One of them is communications. By show of hands, how many people have started following NCDOT on Facebook or on Twitter in the last week? I only see one hand. Y'all are nuts. Y'all are nuts. You need to pull out your phones. You get a permission to pull out your phones right now. Go follow NCDOT on Twitter and Facebook, because I guarantee you I will not let you down. They have ramped up their game, and I challenge you, if you want some comic relief, you need to follow it. They're doing an awesome job. I spent an hour just reading comments, and if everybody had their way, the comms people would be getting a big old pay raise. So, more than one person. Come on now, help me out here. The next thing that I want to really draw emphasis to is what Ronnie talked about in regards to construction and maintenance and operations input on our designs. We're actively working to try to get our designers out into the field to see how projects are constructed. Now, many of you know that I'm a pre-construction guy, but I had the luxury of spending 3 summers in heavy construction. And one time I was working night shift in the middle of West Virginia where we were tearing down a mountain and filling in a valley. We were waiting for the next truck to come in. I was doing inspection on lift checks. And I swear to God, this guy sitting on the dozer was probably 72, 73 years old. And I'm standing there just waiting. And he says, "Hey, Chris, why don't you come here?" I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "Can I give you a piece of advice?" "Yes, sir." He said, "Before you go and try to sit behind a fancy computer and try to tell us how to build these roads, why don't you spend some time out here and learn how we construct them?" It was one of the most valuable pieces of advice that I was given as a young engineer. Our goal is to get our designers, not just at DOT, but in the industry, out and visiting construction projects to get a better understanding. Likewise, we need to pull more construction operations and maintenance staff back into our pre-construction side when we are developing these designs. These people have seen a lot. They've seen a lot in the years. There's many of you that used to be at DOT that are now at industry partners. We need that knowledge to be looking at our designs and our plans, not at the end, but throughout the process. We can't really put a value on what that input is going to provide to DOT, but I can tell you it's an enormous value. Last thing I want to say before we go to break, if you hadn't downloaded the Slido app, Eugene, I don't know do we have the, what is it, QR code? I feel like I'm getting old. There you go. We're going to be leaning on the Slido app as we've done in the past. For all you hermit crabs that like to stay in your shell, you've got all these questions and all these comments. We're pulling out the old Slido app once again, where you can post your questions or comments for everyone to see, or you can post them anonymously. We will be using the Slido app through multiple sessions later today and into tomorrow. So I'd like for you to take this moment and make sure you have the Slido app. I think Eugene's got good directions up there. Please have it downloaded for the next session. And with that, we're going to take a little bit of a break. You got 20 minutes to do your networking, make some pit stops, and come back. We're going to start promptly at 2:15. Thank you very much, and please remember to keep your masks on.